Hey, it's Dustin with PPC Pros. I'm doing this video because I did an audit not that long ago that I thought would be really helpful for a lot of people out there running Google Ads already and not really sure how to optimize things, and also not really understanding how Google optimizes for their own benefit. And so this is going to be a perfect example of not only Google trying to take some money out of your pocket, but also if you do your tracking wrong, how you're gonna even make it worse for yourself, okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at an account right now that I don't remember the date range, and I'm not gonna share any of the private information here, but let's just take a look at this, and they've spent $36,000 in ads in this period of time, okay? And when you look at this, if you don't know what this is, it's a Google Ads interface. If you're running Google Ads, you should know that, at least the idea of it. But don't worry, you don't have to be an expert. That's why we're doing this video. So one of the things that I always try to look at is where people are getting their traffic from. Now these days with Performance Max, this is not as easy to do. We'll talk about that in another short video because the same problem actually happens there. You just don't have any visibility yet and there's no control. But right now we're talking about just search. And what you can see right around here is that we have a segment. We turn on this little segment option for networks, and this is it's actually a video audit that I did, so I don't have like the live UI right now. This is just a recording behind here. But basically you click on segment, you choose network with search partners, and then right now I can see for this entire account that search partners took about 50%, just under 50% of the spend, okay? And what tends to happen is most of the time it's bad when you see conversions. Let me explain why. So you can see right here, there's this conversion value. Now in this particular account, because their tracking was incorrect, they were attributing revenue from form submissions, okay? So when you look at this, you'd be like, well, what's the problem? They're making all this money there. This is not real money. This is just the value of a form, okay? And where this comes into play is because a lot of the spam leads that you see that come through Google, especially on Performance Max, tend to come from search partners, okay? So we've seen this in account after account. I've never quite seen Google go after this much money, but when you look at how things were optimized for revenue, it makes sense, right? Google's thinking they're making all this money for this particular customer, and in reality, they're not. They're looking at this like, well, the ROAS is better here, return on ad spend, if you know what that means. And on search, it's so much lower, so let's just spend more money here. But unfortunately, this is where the problem occurs. So number one, what I see most often is that there's some amount of search partner traffic, and usually there's no conversions, okay? In that case, it's very easy to explain to the customer that, hey, listen, you're spending a lot here, it's not really converting well. That's probably the majority of the cases, to be completely honest with you. The other side of it is what we're seeing right here. There's a bunch of spend on search partners, but oh wow, look, a lot of conversions are coming from that. Wow, our conversion rate, it's really good. Oh, look how many leads we're getting. Look how cheap they are. This is amazing. We're so good at Google Ads. Aren't we wonderful? And then what you don't realize is if you're the business owner, you might wonder where this is coming from. Or if you're the agency, you probably pat yourself on the back not realizing there's a very good chance you're driving some fake or crappy leads to people. And I see this all the time. And let me pause the video. I'll kind of jump to another part of this to try to show you some more of the metrics. One sec. Okay, so here's a perfect example. It's a little bit further down in the video where I kind of go through how I identify that this was an issue. Usually I just check the segment anyway, but this is where it's very apparent. So this is how you can check your account if just looking at search partners, that network segment is not enough for you. When you look at the search terms, whenever I see these kind of long tail terms show up really high in the impressions or the clicks, and especially if I start seeing them like ad group after ad group. Again, I didn't set up this account. This is not an account we set up. We just did an audit for it. But it seems very suspect. Okay, when you've been doing this for a while, it just seems very suspect in my opinion. Especially when you start to see like, wow, the click-through rate is so good on this term. It's so weird. Who would type that in? Why would this long tail search come up so often? We see this not just in this particular case, but this could be for home services. This could be for a bunch of other things. But search partners, again, when we add that segment, in this particular view, we can see again, Google search versus search partners. The vast majority of the clicks are coming from search partners and very few from Google search. So it doesn't mean that nothing is happening in Google search. It just means that much less. And then for these really long tail, there's no Google search traffic right here at all. All right, so that's just a quick, easy way to tell in some cases. that this is going on. And so that's just one way you can kind of pop in there. So long tail, weird phrases, almost like, imagine like with e-commerce, we see this when it's like an Amazon search, like when you would copy the name of a product on Amazon, which no human would ever name something like that. They're not trying to keyword stuff a product title. When you start seeing search terms like that, it's almost certainly search partners, okay? So that's just one way you can sort of tell. And again, what happens is the data gets so skewed across your campaigns. It makes it like in this particular case, let's look at this one search term right here. Like our interaction rate, our click-through rate is 57% on search partners versus 7% on search. Okay, our cost per click, $1.92 in search partners and $12 on search. So when you start looking at your metrics as a whole for this keyword, it totally muddies the water when you're looking at it that way. So again, you just got to be aware that by default, if you follow Google's instructions, if you're talking to a Google rep, or if you just, I hate to say this, but hire an agency who's not really focused or specialized on Google Ads, this is a very real outcome that can happen. I see it happen a lot of times when we do audits. I'd say this is probably one of the worst in terms of how much spend it got away with. But I also think it's because, again, if your tracking is not correct and you're giving Google data about that traffic, converting because you're, set up your tracking wrong, or you're giving value to form submissions, which is not inherently wrong. It's just wrong when you don't have a feedback loop to make sure you're not giving Google bad data. That's a whole other video and topic. This is what you end up with. You end up with a jacked up account. The good news is, to fix this, you basically obviously turn off search partners because you don't want that traffic. And then what you need to do is, if you're using smart bidding, you need to go back to manual bidding again, unless this is just a very compartmentalized issue, which I doubt it would be, and it wasn't. You would want to just go back to manual bidding, or you may just want to turn off search partners and then create a new conversion action that's not the one you've been using to optimize towards for actual form submissions. But again, in this case, we just recommended just go back to manual bidding, turn off search partners, and let Google start to learn what are good conversions again, okay? Because if you don't do that, then you're going to turn off search partners, but you still train them on bad data. Now, I don't know that Google will be able to find conversions like this in other places quite as easily, but why take the chance? So you roll back to manual bidding for a bit, maybe a month, 2 months, whatever, it depends. In this particular case, they spend a lot of money. It doesn't have to be that long, but we definitely want to have at least a month, or, in this case, 50, 60, maybe more conversions that are good quality come through to help try to train Google again, or untrain them on what was bad. And if this would have been a short-term issue, like maybe it's only happened for a few weeks, you could try to use the tool for Google to exclude that data, but this has been going on for a long time. So the data that Google has is really bad. So in that case, I would even really just consider creating a whole new conversion action. I don't recall if that's what we told him to do now, but that would make a lot of sense. Just don't even use that conversion action anymore. Create a whole new one, and that way you can train Google on that particular conversion action, and at very least you can optimize your campaigns for that particular conversion action for a while. So anyway, that's a great example of why you have to know what's going on. If you turn on a Google Ads account Google's way, or if you're doing it with an agency who's, again, not specialized, no offense to anybody out there, but I'm just keeping it real, it's very possible you could be pissing away your hard-earned dollars. And again, if the agency doesn't know it, they could be celebrating, telling you how great you're doing because you're getting all these leads for cheap, and you should be paying them more. And the reality is you're probably getting all kinds of fake spam, and you're like thinking Google Ads doesn't work. And it can. It doesn't work for everybody, but it definitely works as a platform. So keep that in mind. Hope this helps. Take care. God bless.